Okay, welcome back. We are doing more novel bootcamp. This one is going to be sort of one of these big, broad overview classes. It's going to try to help you get organized in time for NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month, which is every November. People try to complete an entire book of at least, I think, 50,000 words is the goal. And you can, on the website, you can log your progress if you want to, but you absolutely don't need to. This can be something you just pursue on your own. And we like to try to sync up, in at least the couple of these that we've done, we'd like to try to sync up the novel bootcamps with the NaNoWriMo just in order to give people a sort of incentive and structure to write their books throughout November. And even if it takes longer than that, even if you don't finish within the month, then you will at least have gotten a great start and you will know what you need to do next. Let's get going. So we're in a stage channel right now. This is not a normal voice channel, so remember you do have to click that raise hand icon to speak aloud. So for anyone who's brand new or does not know or is watching on our many streams, we are WordCamp, which is part of the Skill Camp group of servers, which are all dedicated towards creating free and low-cost classes to reach your life goals. We have lots of free classes, table reads, workshops, script swaps, writers groups, and everything else. You can find all the info at scriptcamp.net, and soon we'll have a new website. So ScriptCamp being our main sort of home base, but we do have many other servers too, which you can see here. GameCamp being the newest one with game design workshops every Wednesday, 6 p.m. So I'm mostly a screenwriter, but have gone more into novel writing these past couple of years and written 6 books. I've not actually had a book published yet, but maybe this upcoming year will be the year. Novel Writing Month is where millions of writers try to complete 50 to 110,000 words in November long. That's the length they're aiming for. And we are going to be starting our bootcamp on November 1st. So the goal being you will use November as like your first major work period, and then you will probably continue afterwards throughout the rest of the course, so you'll finish around the end of the year. But today's class is free, and all our Nano Prep workshops are also free for everyone to participate. If you're just joining or you're watching along on Twitch, Twitter, Discord, YouTube, or something like this, you can also find all these on YouTube after they're done. Or I think on Twitch too, you can watch them back. How would I know? I don't go on Twitch. So we've got plenty of ongoing courses. I don't think we have the game design on here because there was just not room for it, but that is Wednesdays at 6. We have a short film boot camp coming up November 1st. That's going to be Fridays 11 a.m. on Film Camp. Full Stack Developer Boot Camp is November 1st, Fridays at 8 on Code Camp. Maybe you can tell me what that is because I don't even know what that means, but I'm sure it's awesome. We have Pilot Boot Camp that's currently running Sundays 11 to 1. That just started recently, so you can bring your recent projects. Feature Bootcamp is running Fridays from 6 to 8, and we just did week 2 or 3 yesterday, I think 2. We have a couple other programs you can apply for. You can see like Advanced Labs, Advanced Fiction Lab, which is becoming, it's changing forms in the coming weeks to months. We'll have an announcement about that soon. And we also have weekly labs on both novel and screenwriting topics. Those are held on ScriptCamp from 4 to 6 on Saturdays and from 12 to 2 Friday. So you can join us, scriptcamp.net, and you can sign up for membership and also get the link to join our Discord server, which is free to join. You can go to almost every event except for these boot camps and the labs, which are part of the member benefits. So if you become a subscriber, you'll get access to absolutely everything. And you can vote in the chat and let us know if you are intending on signing up or if you have questions, things you'd like to see, anything like this. Okay, so today we will start with just, if you've been in previous novel boot camps before, the first 10 minutes will be old hat, but I'll try to cover the old hat stuff in a pretty efficient way so that we can spend more time on the fun, new, exciting stuff, which might be your guys' new ideas. So hopefully you've got some different new ideas for novels coming up. You've got some maybe stuff you've worked on in the past that you've been outlining, but now you're ready to finally dig into it and start writing pages. Or maybe you have a couple ideas that you're trying to choose between, or you're trying to figure out how to make your idea work as a book or something like this. And today is a fine time to ask those questions and to get organized. We are trying to answer the question, why this story? That's like the theme of this class. But why you don't have to have some brilliant reason why. It's just sort of why, as in like, what's interesting about this? What's new and different about this? What about this fulfills the promises that I expect from its genre, but also does so in a slightly new or different way, so I'm not just repeating stuff I've seen before. So we'll start with sketchbook, premise, reader, genres, markets, word count, tense, and POV. That's the kind of, I can't guarantee it'll all be in 10 minutes exactly, but I'll cover that stuff to begin with, and I'll stop at the end to take questions on them. I just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page about those, but we have covered those in many other classes before, so there's plenty of resources and ways of finding out how long should my book be, and things like this. We'll just cover the essentials. And then we will go into a bit into loglines today. If you guys have new loglines for books that you want to share, or if you're trying to decide between several of them, we can take a look at those today. And also, I don't have it on the overview, but I want to do picture prompts, which is where we'll be coming up with ideas for new books based on picture inspiration, such as the one I previewed about 50,000 bees. So we won't be doing much structure work today. We won't be expanding the logline into the outline yet, but just getting the groundwork down, figuring out what is the book that I'm trying to write, what will some of those essential elements be, what is it supposed to feel like, just nailing all that down. And then we'll finish with a workshop lab period where you can ask whatever questions you want, or if somebody needs extra help getting unstuck or figuring out their premise, then you can ask those questions then. I usually like to save the last 20 to 30 minutes of the class for that, but sometimes it's less. Okay, great, let's get going. So, to begin with, maybe you can just feel free to raise a hand and tell us what are some of your favorite authors or genres. Is this your first novel boot camp, or have you come to a couple of them before? Is this your first book? Have you written books before? Are you trying something new or trying something that you've done in the past? Just feel free to introduce yourself and tell us about your goals as a writer. You can raise your hand by clicking that raise hand button in the center middle of the Discord window, and I can call on you to speak aloud, or you can also weigh in using the text chat. Let's hear it. What are you guys working on? What do you want to say about it? Okay, I'm going to call on people one-on-one because I don't see hands being raised. Let's start with Megan.
Helps if I unmute. Works so much better when I unmute.
Yes.
Hello. Okay, so my favorite books are Dune and Pride and Prejudice. Which strangely enough, another member here told me were also his favorite books, and I thought that was kind of a funny combination. So apparently I'm not the only one. Who combines those two very, very different sort of genres and loves them both. My favorite authors and genres, I love sci-fi, I love fantasy. I like romance stories. Anything that's gonna combine sci-fi and romance, or sometimes fantasy and romance, I tend to, or even paranormal. I love paranormal stuff, paranormal thrillers, that kind of thing. Anything that combines that with a little bit of romance works for me usually. I'm working on my second novel, which is what I'm hoping to finish during the month of November, at least the rough draft. That'd be great. Knock wood. And I've written a previous novel, Demon Rising, which takes place in the same world as the current novel that I'm writing, although both are standalone novels. My goals as a writer, getting myself published in the next year or two so that I can start cranking out novels so that I have sort of a bit of something to do as I, close out my phase tattooing in the next 10 years. And I figure I've got maybe another good 10 years in me tattooing before my eyes and my back aren't going to want to do it on a daily basis. And, it'll be nice to transition into something else that I love full time. And so novel writing fit that bill really well. Not that I was thinking that when I wrote the first novel. I was just thinking, hey, I've got a lot of free fucking time because of the pandemic, so I may as well write a novel that I've always wanted to write. And
Right.
I've become obsessed with the writing sense. All right, that's basically it.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yes, I think we've seen a lot of people turn to novel writing and game design during the pandemic. I saw a raised hand from Nacho. Would you like to speak next?
Sure. Yeah, I would say probably my favorite book is A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. I read a lot of different genres. I guess probably I enjoy most books that have like a really interesting character voice. Recently been reading a lot of Barbara Kingsolver's books. She just has these really strong, voices of these, characters. At least both the books that I read, they were kind of a lot of characters from the South, so they have like a real, interesting way of talking and thinking and seeing the world. And so far, I've written mostly screenplays, and I wrote my first novel during NaNoWriMo a couple years ago, and it was terrible because I wrote it so fast, like 80,000 words in a month, like bam, 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 just knocked it out. And so I've been trying to sort of rewrite it from page one, and I created a sort of a new outline for that. Also recently started writing a short story, and I'm kind of, I started just sort of writing, sort of winging it. It was part of a exercise in one of our workshops. But then I took a break to kind of sort of outline, well, where am I actually going with this? And it feels like maybe it might be kind of a longer-ish story, or possibly a novel or novella. So that's one thing I'd like to get your feedback on, maybe during the lab period or something, we can talk about it, or another time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have a logline for it, or is it still early?
Yeah, I do. Well, I have kind of a couple sentences summary. So I'll try to put together a logline before the end of the workshop.
Okay. Sounds awesome. Thank you, Nacho.
And
go ahead.
Yeah, as for my goals, just, trying to get better at the craft. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Let's see. Who else? Anybody else want to raise a hand, or shall I call on Amanda? Do you want to tell us your update? It's been a while. Okay, maybe she stepped away. Mario?
Okay, so I completed like most of a manuscript for some kind of competition, but then I got injured. I couldn't. I'm still dealing with the repercussions, but hopefully I can pick it up. Mainly, I do write a lot of short stories, and so now we go to genre. Genre is about coming of age fantasy, and there's a lot of maps, a lot of magic. Got to tone it down a little bit. What else? I am a software engineer by trade. Currently taking a sabbatical, but probably wanting to go back into the industry sooner rather than later. So try to probably pump this thing out by November.
Great.
And get out of the way. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thanks for that. I had an injury myself a couple years ago. I think some people know about. My right hand got paralyzed for 6 months, and still, kept at the writing and didn't let it slow me down. So I'm sure, like, if you want it bad enough, you will find a way to recover, or to find some alternate method. Hi, Becky. Let's go on to Michelle. Would you like to give us your update? Tell us what you're working on, where you are, what your goals are.
Hi. Okay. Let's see. Update. I'm in the break into two for my my sci-fi novel. Favorite genres. I don't think I have a favorite genres. I like a lot of different ones. But I do really like mysteries, sci-fi, horror. But I guess if I had to pick, what am I going to buy? It'd probably either be some sort of like Dan Brown type mystery, or a murder mystery, or a sci-fi, novel that seems kind of interesting. So, yeah, I'd say that's probably it. And my goals are to get my novel written, and my other novels written, and and if they get them published, but right now I'm just working on the let's get them written part because um, my seizures have really gotten in the way with trying to complete things. And I was planning to go back to work by now, but um, I've just been having so many problems with my seizures. I just don't know if I'm going to be able to do that anytime soon. And so um, I would say that's the number one thing that's been interfering. When you got to lay down for a couple of hours because despite medication, you still have seizures. It makes it very difficult to finish anything. So yeah. So that's it.
All right. Thank you for that. Hope you can
Sure.
recover enough to finish your book coming up. Thank you for that.
Oh, and by the way, I was just wondering, did
Go ahead.
you with your wrist, did you go and get any physical therapy or anything?
I tried to, but it ended up that they basically said I just had to wait, and it just took a really long time to heal. But there was nothing there was no active treatment for it.
Oh, okay. I was just curious because when I had a wrist injury, I got physical therapy, and the other wrist I just had to have surgery on, and went through physical therapy for that. I was just wondering.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. I didn't end up having to do much except wait. It took a long time. All right. Let's hear from Becky.
You answered my question. I was going to say, are you doing it in order or do we have to put up our hands?
It was so quiet at first, I just started calling on people. And it's just like in school when the teacher's like, you.
So I'm currently doing my redoing my outline, but for my editor because my outlines are written for me and she wants to see my outline. So I'm just sort of tidying it up a bit for her, putting it into their format that they like, and putting it in words that someone who doesn't know the book would understand, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
In non-note form. And she wants that for Monday, so I'm just sort of been doing that over the weekend. And I think I've got a name for my character. I'm going with Tabitha Drake, because Drake means dragon, but also he was a famous. Oh my god, I've got his first name now. No, not Nathan. I'm not doing the game, Connor. No, the explorer.
Yeah, isn't that guy the one that Nathan Drake is named after?
Yeah, that Nathan Drake thought that he was a relation of. Yeah.
Right.
So, it's also a male duck. Awesome. But I just think it's got a nice, because it's going to be the title. It's going to be like, because it's middle grade. It tends to be the way to do it nowadays is character name and then like the book.
Right.
So Violet Vale and then the case of blah blah blah, or Charlie Bone, and then
if it's a series, if it's a one-off, not as much, but for sure when they brand the series, they're gonna be like, oh, did you read the new Tabitha Drake book?
Yeah, exactly. And this is a series. It's intended to be a series.
Right.
They want to buy it as a series. So I thought, even though she hates being called Tabitha, that's established in like the first chapter.
Mm-hmm.
But also I think just Tabitha Drake sounds better than Tabby Drake,
Yeah, I would agree.
So it's Tabitha Drake, the Netherworld Necromancer. That's
Great.
my first book.
Awesome.
So,
looking forward to more.
And I did check, because I know we were talking before about whether kids would understand what a necromancer is, and also, my use of the word necromancer, and I talked with my editor about that. She says for now at least she really loves the title because kids might not know exactly what a necromancer is, but they have an idea from it just kind of being a thing, because of Dungeons and Dragons. It's just kind of in our, in the
and the
they
world,
sort of
the
know
video
the
game
term.
influence, I think, is strong enough that at least some kids will know this
Exactly.
from, I don't know, Minecraft or stuff like that has magic and wizards and things in it.
Exactly. And Netherworld, she likes the alliteration.
Right.
So
There's also some stories also have netherworld in them, so they might know what it means from that. Like Mortal Kombat, for instance, has a netherworld.
Exactly. So, but she said, although they might not necessarily know what it is, it sounds intriguing enough to them. That I mean, it might get changed. It might. She said most likely it will be changed in America. So.
Oh yeah, could happen. All right. Well, thanks for the update. It seems like you're back on track.
Yeah. I haven't started back on the actual novel yet because I took such a long break. I need to get back into it. But doing the outline, I think that's why my editor said to give her the outline, because I asked her for advice, and we're meeting in the middle of October. So.
Right. Just in time for spooky season.
Yep.
Thanks for the updates.
And you know my goals as a writer.
Oh yes, become the next best-selling worldwide author, perhaps.
Okay, don't say the next J.K. Rowling. No, I want to be more like
anything else to say besides that. I was like, what can I possibly say?
I want to be more like Michael Morpurgo, who's written like loads of books. Although I want to write series, but oh my god, being known for just one series would be a nightmare.
Well, there's worse things that could happen. I mean, like being known for a book series. There's if you had to choose, it's not the worst fate. All right, thank you for that. Let's ask. Did I skip anyone that wants to weigh in? Okay, I think that's everyone for now. So let's get into it. So we're on the NaNoWriMo prep. This is technically just like an open one-off class that's supposed to help you get organized. So we're going to cover the basics, like I mentioned, pretty quickly and efficiently at the start, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. And maybe as a refresher, if it's been a while since your last novel boot camp or something like this. So week 1 is all about premise, characters, and the logline. So premise being, what is the story? It's like such a simple, deceptively, I guess, simple question. What is the book about? What is this one? Like, how do we package it? What does the front look like? We were talking yesterday, and it was kind of a funny comparison how a manuscript or a script is like a blueprint in a way, and you can approach it like, blueprints are for architecture, right? So if you think of, like, it's like a building, right? So I'm making a library, but everyone's been to libraries before. If I made a pamphlet for my library, what would I want to have on the cover? Maybe this is just too much of a reach, but I thought it was kind of fun to think, okay, we've all been to libraries, but is mine a very stately, ancient library? Or is mine a kind of punk rock library that has live music and a stage? Or is mine a cafe that mostly emphasizes its treats and its ice cream gelato section or whatever it is, right? So we have to know not only what we're in for. It's a library where you go to get books, like we know the basics of what the essential appeal is. But more so than that, you have to think of how to frame what you've got, frame the content, and say, this is my specific approach to this thing. This is why you'd go to mine as opposed to going to any others. Just saying it's a library is not usually enough to get someone to go. You have to say, this is my library, and here's why. So I would make your sketchbook now if you haven't already done that. That's a blank new Google document where you're going to keep and organize all your ideas and questions and notes for this one project as you continue to develop it. There's nothing you absolutely have to have in your sketchbook except, I guess, for we have a couple fields to fill out at the top, which I guess I don't have listed here, but it's like title, genre, logline, and comps. If you know what those are and can fill those out at the top, then everything else is free, open season, fair game, whatever. You can do whatever you want with the rest of the sketchbook. Mine end up usually being between 15 and 30 pages long. You can also work out early versions of your story beats or scene cards in the sketchbook and copy and paste them into the separate documents when they're ready. Okay, so we're also asking the question, why this story? Nacho made this amazing new diagram. Look at this. So we're asking the question, what is the central conflict? What does the main character want? What makes it difficult? I mean, you can have the reason I feel like it and I want to is a valid one. It isn't the sort of thing where it's not like writing a college application. You don't have to like have some deeper reason where you wanted to create some change in society or something like this. You don't have to have it. You can just say, oh, I thought it'd be funny. Or you can say, it was the scariest thing I could possibly think of. Or maybe you just say, it's so gripping I can't stop thinking about it. All of these are valid reasons, but I would interrogate a little further than that, because like if you have 10 ideas you can't stop thinking about, then you have to start evaluating them with the different metrics. Those other metrics might be, first of all, is there an interesting voice here? Why is the character's viewpoint interesting? who will read the book? If you've got 10 ideas and they all feel like they would basically work or you'd enjoy them all equally, then and that's usually the first metric we go to, which is what gets you the most excited? What are you most interested in? What can you feel most confident that you will be able to summon the energy to work on day by day by day? Then the second question is going to be these things here, right? Like, which is the most compelling story to other people besides me? Which is the most popular genre might be a question you ask if you are trying to make a living as a novelist. You might also ask the question, what is my market? What is the target age group that I'm aiming for? What are the comps, meaning comparing these other books? If I'm going to say my book is like Stephen King's It meets, I don't know, The Old Man in the Sea, right? Okay, it's about a bunch of people on a boat being stalked by an underwater clown, I guess. I don't really know. But in any case, you are kind of narrowing down what the appeal is, who would like this, and who would just be basically grabbed or intrigued enough to open it or to read it. So we're asking, who will read the book? What other books do they like? Genre, market trends, has it been done recently? Has it been done before? You typically don't want to chase trends to the extent that you don't want to pick something just because it's popular, because you better believe that by the time that you're finished writing and publishing that book, it may no longer be popular, or it may be overdone at that point, it may be dead, it may be out of fashion, whatever it is. So you have to kind of find that balance between something that I think people would read versus something that's not greatly oversaturated. Some examples of things that are oversaturated. Fairy-based romantasy in the past 5 to 10 years. Although that has been kind of a big thing since Holly Black started publishing urban fantasy in the early 2000s. But regardless of that, early or maybe 90s, that is just like really, really well trodden. How about domestic suspense about husbands and wives cheating on each other and trying to get away with crimes such as murder or kidnapping? Often of the other one. Thank you, Gillian Flynn. Yes, that is a very oversaturated genre, domestic suspense. Oh no, Becky says my mic is breaking up. We just worked for so long yesterday to try to fix that. Is that happening for everybody else?
It's kind of intermittent, so right now it seems like it's not happening.
I guess we have to do another troubleshooting session. Not sure. I don't know why. I thought we fixed it.
Sounds good right now. Sounds
okay.
Yeah, it sounds perfect.
I guess I'll turn the level down a little bit, and if it continues, I can try redoing the plugs like I did yesterday. Okay, that's frustrating. What else though? So we have genre market trends. Has it been done before? Has it been done recently? Has it been done well? So we're gonna have some time to share what you have of your premises for today. Becky says it's doing it to Nacho for me too. Okay, I didn't hear anything from any distortion on Nacho's end, so my guess is actually it might be on Becky's end. Go ahead, Becky. Would you like to speak up?
It seems to be fine now, but maybe I'll change to my iPad just to be on the safe side.
Okay, up to you.
Give me a sec.
Yeah, no problem. Just trying to fix the problem. No problem. Just trying to fix the problem. That doesn't make sense. There is a problem, and we're trying to fix it. Thank you for speaking up. Okay, so we have this other question we want to get through. We always have this question: how long should my book be? Or this is a common concern. How many words am I actually trying to write here? And again, we are thinking in words, not pages. Page counts are useless and meaningless in terms of novel writing because using different fonts and sizes and everything else can just drastically alter the page count. So don't worry about pages. We're just talking words. So a novel is usually at least 50,000 words. A book versus a novel is the difference is that a novel is a fictional story with characters that you've come up with, or they could be involving real people or events that have been altered in some way, putting your own spin on it and your own imagination. A book can be either fiction or nonfiction. So a novel is specifically fiction, and in this class we're focusing on commercial. Commercial being a target market, and commercial being intended to appeal to as many folks as possible. So trying to sell as many copies as you can. We're not trying to... Hang on, let me just move ahead a little bit. We're not trying to push the envelope in terms of word use. We're not trying to show what's possible in the genre. I thought I had a whole slide on commercial. Here it is. Broad appeal, intended to sell lots of copies, style and story that's accessible and likely to be enjoyed by an average reader. This is the sort of thing it's like you can give it to your grandma, and she may not love it, but at least she'd understand it. We're not trying to blow people's minds with the arrangement of words on the page. Some examples would be, we mentioned Stephen King, Dan Brown, people like this. They're often going to fit into really clear-cut genres like mystery, horror, romance, fantasy, sci-fi. If it doesn't fit into any of those, you might be writing literary fiction, which is a... in quotes, more sophisticated, it's in quotes because it doesn't mean better, It just means that the intentions are a little bit different. The intention might be to advance the medium as a whole, to make some kind of change in the world or culture, or just maybe to stun readers with just masterful use of language. There are combinations of, there's a spectrum between commercial to literary, and in the middle we have upmarket. But at the literary end, we're going to see your Cormac McCarthy, Barbara Kingsolver, David Foster Wallace, people like that who are writing innovative, different stuff that shows us what we can do with words. And then in the middle we have upmarket, which is, don't I have a slide on that? I guess I don't have a slide on upmarket, but that's the in-between spot. So it could be commercial-style plots, but with more literary-style writing. Or it could be kind of weirder plot, like more out there plots, but with commercial-style writing. It could be somewhere in between, but there's something that's elevated about the language. It's not just trying to be understood and kind of act as like that crystal clear, just saying what's happening kind of prose that commercial fiction can kind of fall into. You are trying to draw some attention to the beauty of the language itself. If you view the prose as the sort of filter through which we understand the story, then commercial is usually angling towards writing what's called window pane prose, or a window glass prose. It's invisible and sort of, you just want to pay attention to the story on the other side of the glass. Whereas upmarket is more like stained glass, right? Where it's like, you look through the glass and it is beautiful on its own, but we are also interested in what's on the other side. Whereas literary is more like a mural or something like that, right? It's the story is not really as important as the words themselves. Or the ideas, perhaps. So that's the difference between target markets. And then in terms of the age group of the readers, our choices are adults, new adults, which is a really kind of weird one that I don't really recommend focusing on too much, because some publishers don't even, or lit managers, lit agents don't even really buy into the fact that it exists. So new adult, I would just pretend it isn't there. But adults, which is going to focus on characters that are older than 20. Expectation is that the vocabulary or structure might be a little bit more complex, but it doesn't mean that it has to be literary. There's plenty of commercial, very simply written adult fiction. Word counts are a little higher. Pace can be a little slower. Young adult protagonist is a teenager, and book is written from that teenager's point of view, not necessarily in first person, but it is sort of in their voice, and it is like either in close third or first person 95% of the time. So, and we are also writing from that character's perspective in the moment, not flashing back on their experiences from their position as an adult. So that's the difference as well. Megan tells me my mic is breaking up. Nacho tells me it's not breaking up. I don't know what to believe now. They posted it the same minute. I'm going to blame Discord at this point. Okay, what else? So you got to just keep in mind what market is interested in. Different age groups can handle different subject matter. You don't want to include, sexual assault and murder in a book aimed towards kids, probably, unless it is one of those very rare sort of therapy books that is centered on that experience and is more like a therapeutic tool than it is a story intended to be as interesting to as many people as possible. But there's different types of material that you can approach with any lens. There are young adult books about the Holocaust. The Book Thief is a really, really, really dark young adult book about the Holocaust. And then we have adult books that are about people going on first dates and stuff like this. So no actual restriction necessarily to that target or to the subject matter. You just have to approach it in different ways. Okay, people keep telling me my voice is breaking up, so I guess I will have to redo the plug. Nacho, let me know.
Sure. I don't know. It seemed to fix it before.
Okay, I will do that now.
I don't know if that will mess up the stream or whatever. Go ahead.
I don't think it'll mess up the stream because it's just the mic. Give me a second. Okay, can you guys hear me now? Does it sound okay?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, I blew into it like it was an old Nintendo cartridge. Maybe that helps.
Wow.
Yeah, they would take it out, you blow into it. That was like oldest trick in the book. Okay, let's keep going. Where were we? Commercial fiction, yes. So, recapping, commercial fiction is stuff that's supposed to sell a lot of copies. It's not to say that literary or upmarket can't sell a lot of copies. There are some bestsellers in both those spaces, but in any case, we are focusing on the story over the presentation of the story, whereas literary is more about the presentation of that story, slower pace, advanced vocabulary, poetic language, experimental style or structure, complex themes or intellectual ideas, and things like this. This is your literary novels might have log lines that are sort of two couples contemplate life at a barbecue. It's like that's a book. But yeah, if most of it takes place in the world of ideas or their minds or the TV shows that they're watching or things like that. It's not really about people doing interesting stuff. It's about the things that the author wants to write about. I think Margaret Atwood is a good example of that upmarket that writes more commercial style plots but with that literary voice. Okay, so we think all have a good idea of how genres work, and you can see there are different target markets between, or different sort of voices between these. We see everything from literary all the way down to commercial, young adult, and then sometimes there's middle grade versions of these things as well. They'll have slightly different approaches and slightly different words that they use, word choices that they make, and things like this. Okay, so let's just list off our major genres. Which is not to say that these are the only ones out there, that you can't stretch beyond this or maybe incorporate weird blends of these things together, but this is sort of just the language that everyone has in common, that everyone knows what these things mean, and it's useful, therefore, to... let me turn that monitor down because I think that's too high. There we go. Okay, so it tells us sort of the content, the subject matter of the story, so the sort of things that we will be reading about and that will be happening in the text. And it also tells us sort of what are some other genre conventions, what other kind of expectations that we might have, what tropes might be in the book, and just basically what is going on in it. Who might like it? So we have contemporary, which is going to be realistic fiction. Could happen to real people in real modern day settings. This is not called drama. In movies, these are called drama. Or comedy, or dramedy. But in books, this is called contemporary. Drama in the world of publishing refers to theater. So contemporary just doesn't have a strong genre hook usually, though contemporary can have its own sort of plot lines and genres and things like this. But these are usually going to take place in the same time period or within the recent past that the reader is living in, with things that could realistically happen in real life. And some contemporary books might contain shades of another genre, like Holes, for instance, is YA contemporary, with a little bit of mystery, a little bit of thriller, and a little bit of historical kind of like blended in there. So you can always find your own route through these things and make them your own. We've got horror, which is going to include everything from your slasher stories, like a big popular... These, believe it or not, there are popular slasher books like Clown in a Cornfield, which there's even a sequel to now, I believe. All the way to paranormal, supernatural, scary stuff like ghost stories, demons, serial killers. Those serial killers, if they're realistic enough, might fall more under the true crime kind of label. Really just depends on the mood and mode in which it is presented. So horror does not have to be realistic, or it does not have to have magic stuff happening in it. Usually the expectation is that it will, but it can be completely mundane as well. It's really telling us about the intended emotional experience. It is a scary emotional experience. We've got fantasy, which tells us essentially that there are things that happen in this story that are not possible and will never be possible. So that's that difference between sci-fi, is that those sci-fi things may in some way kind of be possible someday, or maybe they are possible in some way now, and they're more about speculating as to what could be, but fantasy is not really speculating what could be in the same way. We're sort of speculating what could be if the fundamental rules of reality were a little bit different. So that means that, like, where you're going to incorporate all kinds of different stuff under this fantasy banner. Lots of genres have what we might call elements of fantasy. Horror can have fantasy in it. Children's books often have maybe some type of fantasy in them. Calvin and Hobbes is sort of fantasy, right? It's like at least presented that way, given the main character's imagination. But then again, you may have the very tropey stories as well, which includes things like, your sword and sorcery influenced by Robert E. Howard books like Conan. Your Tolkien-influenced quest fantasies and travelogues like Lord of the Rings. And everything in between. So you could use lots of tropes. You don't have to use any tropes. Magical realism is a subgenre of fantasy in which it is a realistic world that has one or two supernatural things happening in it that no one usually treats as supernatural. It's kind of like a weird in-between spot. Romance. So this is the top-selling genre in the world. It means that the plot will center around individuals falling in love and struggling to make that relationship work. Usually a central couple, like there's a protagonist and a sort of love interest character, though there are variations in which we have an ensemble love story, like something like the movie Love Actually, where it's like a bunch of sort of episodic love stories that intertwine in some kind of way. You can find a way to do that. In any case, these will include an emotionally satisfying and optimistic ending, because the idea is that the lovers who risk and sacrifice for each other and go through these trials and struggles, whatever it is, they're going to be rewarded with emotional justice and unconditional love. So this is drawn from the Romance Writer's Guide. Like, there's an association of romance writers, and they have pretty strict rules. They can have any tone or style, any place and time, and various levels of spiciness, as you might say, but they're going to have a central love story and an emotionally satisfying and optimistic ending. Those are requirements for the genre. If you want to subvert that and say, just kidding, this one's actually sad and they both die or something like this, then you're falling off of the romance shelf and more into the world of tragedy or historical fiction or something like this. You're just leaving the world of proper romance. Okay, what else? We got mystery. So I think we talked a little about this, but mystery, again, has kind of complicated rules to it. But at the very heart, we have a question that the characters are trying to resolve, usually a question with high stakes, like an interesting question. It's not just a boring, banal question. But this is a question that's like, who killed blank? Who stole blank? Like, there can be a crime at the heart of it, and some subgenres, like detective, usually really focus on that crime aspect. It doesn't have to focus on a detective. It doesn't have to feature a crime. We could have a different mystery, or maybe blend in other genres where you have like a sci-fi mystery, you know, like Arrival has a big sci-fi mystery aspect to it. What do the aliens want, and how do we talk to them? We have a central driving question. That is the most important aspect of mystery, and when it's done and resolved, then the story's over. But if we resolve the mystery like halfway through, and then we start doing something else, we're no longer in capital M mystery world. In the world of capital M mystery, when the central question is resolved, that's like the climax of the story, essentially, or right before the climax. And then by the epilogue, we like to wrap things up and answer. We can leave a couple questions unanswered, but essentially we've gotten the most important answers. Thriller. So thriller is a really broad genre in the novel worlds. It includes a lot of subgenres, including things like what we might consider more like action movies. The action that's sort of like Tom Clancy, guys with guns fighting bad guys type stories. Well, they will often be classified as action thrillers, or sometimes political thriller if it involves some war or political violence or something like that. Thriller also includes domestic, like suspense novels, like we mentioned, like the Gillian Flynn type stuff. It will horror, thriller, and mystery often include elements of each other. So it could be a thriller with scary sequences that also has a driving central question, but it doesn't need to. Thriller is usually a little less focused on supernatural, but then again, you can write a supernatural thriller easily. And also the difference is that thriller, the hook is usually more of the situation, whereas in horror, the hook is usually more like the threat, like the specific monster. It's called It, it's It, I guess, or you could call it Pennywise, right? But in any case, it's named after the monster because that is kind of the core hook of why we come to that story. Action adventure. So this often gets classified under thriller, but there are some distinctions. I mean, what we might look at as sort of pulp action or pulp adventure, things like Alan Quartermain books, or the Indiana Joneses of the novelistic world are going to fall under here. Almost always, this will class under a certain subgenre of thriller, like action thriller. But then and it will be shelved with them, but not always. It kind of depends. And sometimes also it will be under historical if your story has a very strong historical setting. Okay, and then last we have sci-fi, which, unlike fantasy, there can be impossible things happening in your story that are impossible right now, but they might be possible someday, or you're sort of extrapolating from trends and asking, where will this thing end up in 50 to 100 years? It doesn't really have to actually be based on any actual science at all. You can have very light, soft sci-fi, but it has to at least have that veneer of there is a logical explanation underneath this that is based on principles that we do understand or could eventually come to understand. You can make up some of your own science rules and terms and things like that, but the expectation is that you're at least paying lip service to the scientific realities of our world. You don't have to explain too much, though. Okay, tense and POV. So we have first person, that your character is saying, I did or I do this. You can have multiple first person POV, but that gets confusing after like 2 of them, so stick to one for the most part. Really common in young adult, but especially in first-person present immediate tense. It's best used to emphasize a strong character voice. Think if you have a character that thinks about the world or sees the world in a unique or cool way, has some specific way of talking or acting, then this might be the most natural way for you to tell a story. And some people just consider it the most natural regardless, because it's very close to the way that we tell stories in real life about things that happen to us. Very close distance to the character, very close psychic distance, meaning we feel like we are literally in that person's head. And you're going to include a couple variations like epistolary, where in epistolary there are sort of letters or found footage type elements like texts, emails, or something else that are being passed back and forth between the characters that represent sort of in-universe artifacts. Dracula, for instance. Second person, basically, don't do it, but this is like direct address to the reader. It's going to be like, you do or did this or that. And this is really only commonly used in certain types of literary fiction, experimental stuff, and game writing, like either choose your own adventure or role-playing game books. Typically just don't do it. And then last we have third person, the big difference being omniscient and limited. Really common, really versatile. In the omniscient mode, your narrator knows everything and can reach into any character's thoughts or emotions at any time. It's actually pretty rare to see books that are written in true omniscient style. Then we have limited, where the narrator can only access those thoughts and emotions of one character at a time, often separated by chapter breaks, but sometimes just by paragraph breaks. This is a little bit out of fashion nowadays, and you're often just discouraged from head hopping in that way. Okay, your characters, you've got your protagonist, antagonists, and central relationship. You don't have to have just one of, you can have multiple of those, but you have the sort of central spine of your story. Focus is often on one person or one, whatever you have, robot, bug, I don't know what you're writing your book about. But in any case, we follow that journey as the centerpiece of the narrative. We either root for or against that character, but you really just lose us when we don't care. We should want to see that character succeed or not succeed. Ambivalence is just not an option, really. And your antagonist opposes that character's goal. It could be because they're bad and evil. It doesn't have to be, though. It could just simply be that their goals clash with each other, or maybe they have the same goal, but they disagree about how to do it. Or they could even be allies or friends or something like this. But there's someone standing in the way of the protagonist. And only one can succeed. And then we have usually. And then we have the central relationship, which might be buddy, romance, rival, mentor. You might think of other dynamics here, but the key here is that this is they're vital to your character's development. Their journeys are tied with your protagonist, and you can use them. They often come back or come up in the most important scenes. So the sort of turning point scenes, the act breaks, the finale, the central relationship usually plays a big role. Okay, so I think that I want to pause. So we've just covered all the essentials. It was obviously not just a couple slides. It always takes longer than you want it to. But before we get into loglines and things like this, I just want to make sure that we all understand. Let me leave characters for the moment. The very basics: tense, voice, target market, viewpoints. Everybody think they get it? Does anyone have a question about any of those things? Go ahead.
When I get back to my romance novel, I'm going to have the two lovers, talk on the phone, do text, things like that. But it's not going to be the entire romance. It's just going to be when the rock star is out of town, and so he wants to talk to the girlfriend frequently, and vice versa. So that's not going to be epistolary, is it?
No. So epistolary is a mode that the entire story is written in. If there's just a part where the character talks on the phone to someone or reads a letter from someone, it doesn't make the whole book epistolary. No.
Okay. I've never read the book, Bram Stoker's Dracula. I've just seen the movie, and I know there's letters going back and forth, but I was thinking that there was actual interaction between people in the movie.
In the movie, yeah, there is. But so the book is presented all in letters. Frankenstein is too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to read that. That sounds interesting.
Oh, you should.
Okay, well, thanks. That was just my question, and I think I understand the different genres. And although upmarket was the one that I had questions about, but you explained it, so.
Great. Okay, thank you for the questions.
Sure.
And yeah, modern epistolary books can take many different forms: text messages or emails, various types of found notes. Like you can even include screen caps of websites or things like that. You can use all the modern techniques that you want, or like sort of modern considerations of how people communicate nowadays. Or what's the other form? Like forum posts, Reddit posts, stuff like that. You can use those too. Or tweets. There's a short story by one of my favorite authors, Joe Hill. It's a horror story told entirely in tweets, and it's called, I think it's called Tweeting from the Circus of the Dead, and it's about a teenager who goes with her family to this like weird pop-up circus that ends up being like a crazy horror show run by like psychopathic zombie people or something like that. But in any case, the entire thing is written in just tweet after tweet after tweet. It doesn't sound like it would work. Like you might not think that would work, but it actually is really cool. Emojis in books? Yeah, emojis in books has very much been done, for sure. You could definitely do that. Good question, IB. You could even make up your own emojis. Craft them from Unicode yourself. So, plenty of options in terms of point of view. Any other questions before we move on? I think I want to do picture prompts next. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I'll continue for now. So let's go into our prompting. So we're going to be just practicing coming up with ideas based on pictures, and we're going to approach them from a couple different genres. So we're going to try in one genre and then think of what the other different styles or approaches might be. So you can also, while we're doing this, be working on your own logline if you don't want to participate in this exercise. Excuse me. And then you will have an opportunity to share that at the end of class in the last 30 minutes. So just keep that in mind. We'll just be doing other slides and activities for the next half hour. But have your sketchbook open and be working on your idea if you would like feedback on it, or if you feel like you're at that stage where you are ready for it. I would not wait half an hour then go, oh crap, I got to work on my logline. Now I guess I'll write something really quickly. So you should be working on that all throughout class. So we are not going to try to come up with great loglines for these picture prompts. We're just going to speak a little bit more generally and think of like, well, what happens in the story? Who's the main character? What are they trying to do? What's standing in the way? And what kind of book would it be? Like, how do we approach that same idea with different tonal considerations or subject matter considerations as well? Okay, so we're trying to think of some sense of irony, some new or surprising point of view, some variation or interesting mashup of familiar elements. But we're also just trying to have a good time looking at some funny pictures and thinking of stories. So these are just from my phone. I just save things that I think would be good prompts all the time. So now we're going to see what we have on the docket for today, and then I'll take raised hands and we will go one at a time and try to think of some different ideas for these. All right, so to begin with, hidden messages on circuit boards. This is cool. I feel like this is begging to be in a mystery story as a clue. The engineers and designers sometimes incorporate hidden messages or pictures within circuitry, which offer kind of like a unique touch to the hardware, or they act as like almost like a form of signature that says, I'm the one that made this. I wonder how there could be some kind of mystery or something like that tied to that. Could be cool. We've got, you just won a giant tungsten cube. Look how happy Bob is. I wonder what he wants to do with the cube. Was he trying to win that, or was it a surprise, jackpot? Lots of questions about the giant cube. I have on the right, Florida man kidnaps scientist to make dog immortal. Now, to make his dog immortal. Good distinction. So, and he looks a little bit like Abraham Lincoln for some reason. He could play Lincoln in a movie. They should definitely, maybe that comes up in the story for some reason. Abraham Lincoln kidnaps scientist to make dog immortal. So there's our first three. I'll just preview the other ones as well. And then I just want to give you guys an idea of what we're working with before you raise your hands. So we've got the big cat. 38-pound rescue cat named Crumbs gets stuck in the shoe rack while trying to escape from fat camp. He caused a ruckus. Look at him. Look at that ruckus. Okay, cat way too big, can't escape from the camp. What else? We've got, I thought this was cool. So China, quote, disappeared a foreign minister And then later, he was found working a low-level publishing job. He was demoted by the government, and he previously was this aggressive diplomat. There's this sort of Chinese archetype called wolf warriors, which are very sort of rah-rah, patriotic, military-focused politicians or soldiers. And he went from that to what it calls a meteoric rise and an even faster fall from grace. He's now said to be taking a salary at a Beijing state-run bookseller. Cool, right? And then last, we've got, of course, the bees. North Carolina child's, quote, monster in the closet was, in fact, 50,000 bees in the wall. Lovely composition of that one. Something about the phrasing of that's just lovely. It tells such a story, doesn't it? We've even got a protagonist. We've got a conflict. So much there. Okay. Who would like to volunteer? Let's see some raised hands. Who wants to pitch us some story approaches? And we're going to try some different genres. Okay, I saw IB first. Which picture do you want to talk about?
I was thinking the the diplomat.
The diplomat. Okay, I'll bring that back up. So let's start with, on its surface, what genre does it seem like this most naturally wants to be?
It's either mystery or sci-fi.
Okay, mystery or sci-fi. So in that case, why don't you just pitch us your first take, your first impression? What do you think a book about this could center on? Who's the main character? What's he trying to do? Etc. Whatever. You don't have to give it to us in a perfect log line. You can just figure it out as you talk if you want. But just what have you got?
So I had this idea that this minister is actually a robot who's like he was built to be a diplomat / assassin, but then he suddenly had this love of books and escaped, and they can't get him back to doing what he's supposed to be doing because he loves books so much. He's now just publishing, and because he's so much of a deadly assassin robot, there's nothing they can do to force him.
That's pretty funny.
And maybe he just like lives out the rest of his days publishing books.
Okay. Well, that's a funny idea, but where's the conflict?
So what I was thinking is the conflict could be that they go in to try and shut him down because it's like, well, he's technically government property, and if they can reprogram him, he could be very useful in other missions. And they've wasted however sort of much billions of currency on this robot, so that it's like they can't just let him do what he wants to do because it's a waste of resources and time. And perhaps his maker died, and so no one else can make him ever again for some reason. So that makes him even more important.
Right. Okay. So who's the protagonist in this version of the story? Because it seems like the robot is he's thriving. He's in his happy place. He doesn't need to actually do anything, right? So is the protagonist like a government worker that's been assigned to take him down, or to like trick him into thinking he's helping him but find a way to shut it down or something like that? What do you think?
So I was thinking you could follow three people. You could follow some poor schmuck who's been told you have to bring in this killer robot. You have to bring him away from his happy place. You could follow the robot as he goes from being in his happy place to being them trying to take it away from him. And then maybe there could be another character that works in the bookshop with him who dreams of more of like bigger and better things, and then they're thrown into this world of espionage because their co-worker is a assassin robot thing.
Okay, cool. That's a good idea. So maybe in that case you've got a character that was assigned by the government in a more official capacity, but they realize that they're a total outsider in the world of books and libraries or publishing. So they need to get the guy that works at or the girl that works at the bookshop in order to help them get on the robot's good side to bring him back into the government's control. That could work. Also romance.
Yeah.
Right? The girl that works at the bookshop is actually falling in love with the robot, now feels conflicted, can't betray the book writing robot. Could be cool. Okay, let's try a different approach. So chat. Hey chat. What's a different genre IB should think of to present the story in? Just throw it out there. Anybody? First thing. Somebody type in the text chat. Can you guys hear me?
So it could be a fantasy, maybe.
Hang on.
So he.
I want to throw you a
Sorry.
curveball where you don't get to choose the genre, and therefore it's trickier. All right, I'm just going to call in Becky because no one's typing in the chat. Becky, are you there? Becky, you're on mute. What's going on?
Can you hear me
Oh,
now?
there we go. Hello. Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I want it to be a thriller,
Thriller. Got it.
like a spy thriller.
Okay. Got it. So no
Okay.
sci-fi in this one.
So what it could be is the books are being used to send messages from one person to another, and he believes that they're smuggling secrets out of China through these books. So he gives up his high sort of status role in government and his all this money to try and infiltrate this area and figure out what's actually going on. And maybe he finds that what's actually happening is it's someone very high up in the government who's doing this. It could be someone that he cares very much about. So then he has to decide whether or not he will blow the whistle and get this person into trouble for his country, or if he will try and find a way to help this person continue doing it and fly under the radar now that he's found out about it.
Interesting. Okay, this one's a little bit more like The Lives of Others, the German movie. So in this, it sounds like the minister is your hero, whereas in the robot one, he was more like the antagonist. So this is a cool, different approach. So I guess in this version, he would be voluntarily giving up his status, maybe even making it seem like he was demoted to this position to cover up the fact that he's really there to monitor a subversive publishing group. Is that right?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, that's cool as well. I can definitely see that working too. And in that case, you sort of are working up towards that point of building some sympathy for the people that you're infiltrating and asking the question, like, are you more loyal to the government, or are you more, do you want to get the job done no matter what, or do you perhaps join the subversive cause yourself?
Yeah. I think that classic storyline there.
For sure. And we can see why, because that story has probably played out in various ways throughout all of history. All right, thanks for this. Which one do you prefer? Which one do you think it works better with?
I love the robot story just because I think of how just silly it is, but I think it's also a little bit different. I feel like the thing with stories is we've got so many stories that are the same that if you do something that's different, will stand out and people are more likely to read it.
Right.
And sometimes it's just about getting people through the door. And once you're established as a writer, then you can go back to doing these stories that people expect.
Makes sense. Thank you for volunteering.
No problem.
Becky, you want to go next?
Sure.
All right, which picture did you like?
I liked the tungsten cube one.
I guess Bob is talking to Tom. Tom, you just won a giant tungsten cube.
See, I don't know. In that picture, he doesn't look like he's smiling. It's like he's shouting because it's on his foot. But anyway.
Oh, I guess maybe that is the case. I kind of thought he was overjoyed, but maybe it did maybe they dropped it from the ceiling or something. All right, what do you got for this one? What's your first impression, your first idea?
Well, my first idea is that it's going to be twice as heavy as it looks, because tungsten is, I think it's like 1.5 times as heavy, but as dense, but basically it's really dense. And so it's this poor guy who's been stuck on some Japanese game show, you know, where they do all the horrible things where they hurt you. And now he's told this is his prize. And yeah, sure, it's worth a lot of money, but it's one big solid cube that he's got to find a way of getting out of the studio. And so this would kind of be the midpoint of a story of this is what you won, and it turns out it's still part of the game because now he's got to figure out how to get it out.
Okay, so was it a total surprise that this is what his winnings ended up being, you're saying?
Yeah, and it's another trick. It's like this game show is a constant trick after trick after trick. It's one of these ones where you're kind of stuck in there, and stuck in this game show. And so this is your prize if you can get it out of the studio.
I see.
It's
could it be perhaps that the prize was like $5 million, but then it turns out it's a cube worth $5 million that you have to then find a way to monetize yourself?
Although IB says it's worth about $12,000, so but yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, but it's worth whatever.
I like that.
Maybe the idea was that they didn't lie about the prize, but now you like finding a way to liquidate your asset is now the conflict of the story, which makes it feel like that would probably happen before the midpoint to me, though, if that's like the hook of what if we're coming to watch a guy figure out how to possibly get his money's worth out of the cube, which I think that's a cool approach.
Yeah.
That feels like if that's the hook, then that would happen earlier, unless you're saying the tungsten cube is just a part of the story as opposed to the basis of the story.
I kind of felt like it was a part of the story. I kind of was thinking more along the horror line of, it's one of those perpetual game shows that is always just trying to shit on you all the time, Okay. And this is like one of their things. Yeah, you won, and he's like, yes, I finally got it. I finally got the money for the life-saving operation I need, and here it is. It's a tungsten cube.
Right. Okay. So you're saying maybe they'd have a lot of other kind of tricks up their sleeve, and maybe it's about. So what is the protagonist ultimately trying to do? Is he trying to get a jackpot? Is he trying to survive?
I think it's probably, if you look at it's a dystopian future where you basically win. As I say, dystopian future for you Americans, I think this is like your future. But you sort of win the money for your operation that you need, or you win. Do you know what I mean? It's like
that's been explored in books like The Running Man by Stephen King has that as a huge plot point.
Yeah, exactly. So it's that kind of thing where basically he needs, in order to win, he'll get his, I don't know, muscular dystrophy treatment or something. I don't know, stem cell treatment that he desperately needs to live or something.
Sure. Okay. So in that case, it's like a world where money's hard to come by, and he's in the poorer classes or something like this, so he can't afford medicine. So the only jackpot, this just sounds like The Running Man a little bit, but with like a game show. So he signs up for this game and ends up just trying to, I guess he's desperately trying to win the jackpot, but they keep putting up new obstacles and new twists in the way and preventing him from getting it. That sounds cool.
And he's disabled. He's in a wheelchair. That's what he's trying to get stem cell treatment to cure.
Ah, I see. Okay. That would make certain games challenging in a different way, though maybe he could use it to his advantage in certain games too.
Yep.
All right, let's give Becky a curveball. Give her a new genre. Anybody? IB, go ahead.
A romantic fantasy.
Romantasy. Okay.
Ah, I got it. So change it from being like a realistic game show to it being more of a fantasy game show. And it's still like the prize is enough money to live or something. But the romantic part comes from the fact that during the game show, he falls in love with another contestant. And then by the end, it comes down to, does he sacrifice himself for her to win? Or this big tungsten cube, which is the ultimate prize for some reason. I don't know, it's something fantastical. Now this tungsten cube makes sense, because if that's the prize, it's some kind of magical cube that everyone's trying to win. That will do something, yeah. So now it makes sense. But the romantic part is, how's he going to? So it's basically Game of Thrones meets any fantasy.
Well, we have the game show element too, which you might want to include if you're just coming up with comps off.
That's the Hunger Games kind of, but except in a game show.
Right. Good work.
I like it being a game show, but obviously it's not a game show like how we know game shows. It's a game show that you can't leave and you can actually die in.
Yeah,
That's where the Hunger Games elements comes in, except it's on this really bright, colourful set.
Yeah.
And then he falls in love with this other contestant.
Sure. Okay, so that's like a subplot that ends up being the death game genre often involves like certain friendships and relationships that develop between the people involved. Is there a version where he falls in love with the cube?
Falls in love with the cube?
Yes. that is my challenge to
well,
you.
if we're talking fantasy, who's to say the cube has to always stay as a cube? Maybe it is some kind of being that can turn into a cube.
True. Are you saying he couldn't love it if it was only a cube?
That's really not my area. Probably on a romantic level. I don't know. I suppose men fall in love with their cars, don't they?
There's all these reality shows and things like this that are about people with, there's a woman that married a theme park ride. Like you can, there's like all kinds of crazy stuff people can do. I wonder is there a version where the cube just talks and he, like, I don't know. Go ahead.
That's where I was going more, but it ended up becoming more sci-fi than fantasy. But if it's actually like an AI cube, then absolutely you could fall in love with it. And there is a potential future where people genuinely will be falling in love with, AI.
Oh yeah, they already are.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Let's pivot to our next idea. We're going to take another volunteer. Does somebody else want to suggest some takes? And IB and Becky, you can stay on the stage to suggest variations for them. Can we get one more? Michelle, okay, go ahead. Which picture do you like?
I'm sorry. So which one are we going to do?
Yeah, which picture do you prefer?
Well, I either like the chips with the writing in them or the Florida man. I kind of want to do the chips.
Sounds good. All right.
Okay, so we have to offer a log line or just a premise?
Yeah, like we've been doing, just come up with, you can just figure it out and just pitch what the story would be. What's your first impression? What's your first thought?
Let's see, a form of espionage that begins with corporate espionage.
Okay.
So we're going to involve China, and so there's chips being made. They're supposed to be made in the U.S. They're for the Defense Department, and for also for the CIA, but they're being outsourced to China. Messages are being written on a nano level, and let's see, there are messages that are being taken by being read by traders, and that give away state secrets.
Okay, that's something happening in the story, but so for it to be a novel, we'd have to have a character that's trying to do something. So who's the main character? What's their goal?
Okay, we have a spy. His name is Conor.
Okay.
And he used to be military. Now he works for the CIA, and he has found out about this plot, and now he's being pursued by a Chinese guy or Chinese woman named Jean, and so he's running for his life, and then comes to find out there is a traitor in the at the CIA, and her name is Michelle, and so she's been given money by the Chinese to find these messages and pass them along in new chips that give away state secrets.
Okay, so you're pitching sort of a thriller where the main character is running for his life after having discovered this conspiracy, and he's trying to get to safety or prove the conspiracy to be true, or what's his goal?
He's trying to prove the conspiracy to be true and get to safety.
Got it. Okay, cool. I think I get it. That's a good first approach.
So I think we need, that in the first, like in the first half, it needs to be he's trying to prove the thing and no one believes him, and then he's able to prove it, and then once he can prove it, now his life is really in danger.
I see. Cool. All right. Now we're going to give you a curveball, so you're going to think of a new approach with a different genre. It doesn't have to keep any of the same facts that you just thought of. It could be completely different. All right.
Okay.
IB, do you have a
I've got one
suggestion? Yep, go ahead.
sports drama.
A sports drama.
Okay. Okay, well, I guess trying to save his life is kind of a sport. I was going to say comedy, like screwball comedy, kind of take this and turn it into Get Smart,
Okay. Do you want to take a crack at the sports version?
Okay, the sports version. All right. So, let's see. The spy, he plays on the CIA's baseball team, and he went to college on a baseball scholarship. And his nemesis, Zhang Ji, in China, is I don't know what's a really popular sport in China. Maybe soccer.
I think soccer. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now they have a showdown at a international spy conference, and they're having a sports competition, and and this time it's a soccer match. And Connor is that's the one thing he was not good at. He was great at baseball and other ball sports, but he never got into soccer, and he wasn't that great at it. So now, if he doesn't if he doesn't do well in the game, then little does he know he will be taken to China.
He'll be taken to China. Wait, so the main character is trying to win a baseball. What has this got to do with circuit boards?
Exactly. That's what I that was the curveball. Okay, so if he doesn't do well in this the soccer game, then he has to forfeit the information about the circuit boards, and he will be taken to China and be put to death.
Okay. So it seems like the circuit boards don't really play much of a role in that version of the story, but that's okay. It's not always easy to come up with something right off the top of your head that is a 10 out of 10 home run. So I'll say, good swing. Go ahead.
Maybe. Okay, so maybe it's not a direct spy competition. Maybe he poses as a circuit board manufacturer association rep, and the conference is being sponsored by Chinese National Circuit Board Association, and they have this this competition, just as recreation, maybe team building, I don't know. And maybe they've got a soccer robot, and you're supposed to play against the soccer robot. And and one of the chips is inside the soccer robot, and so he's got to find a way of getting the chip out of the soccer robot.
Oh, okay, that's kind of fun. So to sort of sabotage it, you mean?
Yeah. If he, but the only way he can do that is to win. And I'm not sure why. I mean, maybe he gets like 5 minutes alone or gets to inspect the soccer robot, and find out, oh, so this is the chip we used, and and then talk about it, and then I don't know. He's got to have some advanced software, some advanced technology to be able to just immediately know, oh, here's the message that's being passed to the Chinese government through the soccer robot.
Okay, thank you for that.
I don't know if all that works. But.
That's okay. We'll do one more curveball. Becky, do you have one for us?
It's a children's book, just because that's what I know, middle grade.
Great. All right, a children's book. Michelle, are you still here?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
You wanna
So
take
it's a
over? Go
middle
ahead.
grade children's book. So it's the same premise, but now it's a children's middle grade book.
It doesn't have to be the same premise. It's just using the same inspiration. Like it doesn't have to be about espionage, but we are still working with the inspiration of hidden messages on circuit boards.
Oh, okay. So, Becky is a wonderkid who loves designing circuit boards, and she likes drawing pictures, which happens in the circuit boards. And let's say she's got a mom who is a circuit board designer, and she says, "Hey, you're really talented in this. Let's put you in a competition." And she wins a competition, and now she's going to get a scholarship to a high school for talented kids who are talented in electronic arts. And so, do we want to keep the spy thing?
Up to you.
Okay, so one of Becky's teachers, this is inspired by one of my actual professors who worked for the CIA before. One of Becky's teachers, named Mr. Connor, has been a spy, and he designed chips for the CIA, which is what my former business partner did. And he recognizes Becky's ability, and he tells Becky's mom, "We have a junior associate program. I'd like to see about enrolling her in it." And she gets to enroll in it. And now her design is stolen by a Chinese agent working at the high school. And Becky is kidnapped. And Mr. Connor and Becky's mom have to go save Becky and the chip.
Wow. Okay, that turned into a thriller. a little bit in. That's okay.
Yeah, but it's all written for so middle grade, well, it wouldn't be middle grade, so she would be okay. She's in junior high school, right, or middle grade?
Yeah, it's like 10 to 14-ish, or like maybe 8 to 14.
Okay, yeah, I'd say 14.
Middle grade characters could be up to the age of 14, so yeah.
Okay, so Becky's a 13, 14-year-old. And this is inspired by real life because my brother-in-law, he started his own electronics company when he was 12.
Wow.
Yeah, he was, and so yeah, guy was a total genius. Anyway, so I'm thinking for some real inspiration there. Two people I've known in real life. So anyway, so yeah, that's the
Thank you for that
thriller.
well. Yep, there's definitely middle grade thrillers can definitely exist. There, they are maybe not as popular as some other middle grade genres, but they are out there. Thank you for these.
Well, I grew up reading Nancy Drew, the Hardy Boys, and the Encyclopedia Brown. So.
Right. Those are mysteries. So mystery and thriller are linked. They often have elements of each other, but there's a bit of a distinction there. Anyway, nice job, guys. Thank you for coming up with those ideas.
Sure.
Okay, so for the last parts of today's workshop, I did want to open to Open Lab. If anybody has a log line they want to get feedback on or something like this, we have half an hour now, so I'd rather do this than go over more slides. But if we have more time and nobody has something to work on, I really enjoy doing the picture prompts, so I am down to do more. So let's start by just asking, who has questions, problems, story issues, initial log lines, or you're trying to choose between different ideas? What have you got, and how can I help? dead silence spreads across the room.
I guess I give a fun fact while
fact?
people are typing.
Oh,
Tell us
no,
a
go
fun
there
ahead.
fact,
is-
Ivy. It sounds like you've got one ready to go in the chamber.
Sorry,
It sounds like you've got a fun fact ready to go.
I do. I was saying that with circuit boards, you have different levels. You have level 1, 2, and 3, and they're depending on what kind of industry you're putting them in. So I think level 3. I think as the lower the level, the more important it has to make sure that it's all done correctly. So certain things would be like, oh, you like. I think level 3 is calculators. Level 2 would be in like business things, and level 1 would be in like medical things that can't fail. And so with the code thing, I was thinking maybe you could also add code in which level of circuit board it is.
That's interesting. It's like the urgency or importance of the function of that particular piece of circuitry.
Yeah, so it's sort of how if it fails, sort of how bad it would be if it fails. So there's more scrutiny for
Right.
ones that go into the medical ones than ones that would go into like a calculator.
I see. So like more layers of redundancy and things like this.
Yeah, and that kind of thing.
That is a cool fact. Thank you for that. We have a few questions in the chat. Becky says she has a log line but can't quite put it into words yet. It's very wrong. No, long. It's very wrong. It's an evil story. I'm not sure if I can do it. Anyone else? Let's see. Nacho says trying to decide whether the scope for long short story or novella/novel, something just called the library. Hey, we were just talking about libraries earlier in this class. So I'm going to move everyone to the audience. Let me just ask, who would like to... I see a couple ideas, but who would like to actually go? Nacho, would you like to... Is your hand raised? It is. Hello.